Hello, beautiful souls. Cody Ann Smith here from Sovereign Solutions Podcast, here with you guys today, talking about how our emotions fuel our habits and what we can do so that we can create good habits and use our emotions to help guide us to do that. Well, I think a good place to start is to know that this is kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg. Emotions fuel habits. And then as we participate in these habits, it creates an emotion. So it kind of solidifies this cycle that we can get stuck on. And it can be good or it can be negative, right? It can be positive or it can be negative, depending on what habits we are forming and if they are advancing us and moving us closer to our ideal lifestyle or our goals. But they can also be very difficult and detrimental to our destiny and our lifestyle if we are engaging in habits that are keeping us down and that are negative and that aren't feeling our greatest good, right? So with that being said, the more that we create a habit and we have an emotion that follows that habit, eventually with this cycle, we create our identity. We are humans and humans are very habitual creatures. We like to have certainty. So that's why we thrive off of our habits, right? But like I said, sometimes these habits can be very detrimental to our well-being and to our experience. We all came here to experience a great life, right? We want to feel fulfilled. We want to feel prosperous. We want to feel like we're not slaves to our emotions and that we have control or sovereignty over our well-being and over our lives. So this is really important that we, if you're dealing with emotions that are feeling negative habits, that we nip it right in the bud, right here, right now. And I'm going to help you understand exactly how to do that. So the first thing that you want to make sure that you do is that you become aware of the emotions that are driving your habits. Okay. And don't worry if they are positive or negative at this point. Just be an observer and look at your daily habits and see what kind of emotions are triggering this action. Okay. Because that's the first thing. We want to become aware first. That way we can get a good idea of what's going on. And then we can focus where things aren't maybe working the way that we would like them to. Now, if we are looking at the negative emotions, which probably is why you're watching this, it is really important that we understand the driving force behind that as well. And not just the emotions, but the habits. Your habits will show you what kind of emotions you are dealing with. Your emotions will show you what is fueling your habits. Okay, so here's a perfect example. I was a smoker for a good 15 years. I started smoking when I was 15 years old, and then I quit smoking at the age of 28. And when I look at that, and I look at that habit that I had of smoking, there was an emotional undertone as to what drove me to light up that cigarette, right? I would say that a lot of it had to do with stress. That was the main emotion that would trigger me to go and light a cigarette, right? So when I quit smoking, I had to remember that when I was feeling stressed out, that I could choose a different way to cope with that, right? But what I'm getting at here is that stress was triggering the smoking. And then when I would smoke a cigarette, it would create this feeling of almost like euphoria. And it felt so good. And my body would just, it would relax. And I thought that this had got to be the best thing ever, you know? And so without a cigarette, I would get antsy. I would get really anxious. And then it would cause stress. And so then I would light up a cigarette. So that's one example on how our emotions and our habits can kind of fuel each other into creating destruction. Another way that this might show up is with food. This is a big one for a lot of us. And let's say that if you are feeling sadness, for example, then you want to feel comfortable. You want this comfort outside of you. So you might reach for bread or pasta or something sweet to satisfy that feeling so that you can feel comfortable. And so there you can see how an emotion fuels a behavior. And over time, the more that we continue to engage in these behaviors and we use these these foods or these cigarettes or whatever it is as a means to cope with our emotions, then it becomes a habit and then it becomes a lifestyle. All right. So once you've figured out what kind of emotions are fueling your habits and what kind of habits are solidifying your emotions, then it's time to make a choice. And that choice is either going to be to stay on the path that you're on or to make a change and change your lifestyle and the decisions that you're making, because we are ultimately in control of what it is that we experience, right? We are in control of our habits. We are in control of our thoughts, our emotions, and our behavior ultimately. So we get to decide at that point. And this is a very uncomfortable thing if you do decide to take the path of change, because we get addicted to our habits and we even get addicted to our emotions. So one of the emotions that is extremely addictive is well, stress is very addictive, and so is anger, because these emotions trigger adrenaline in the body. And then when you get that adrenaline rush, you feel more alert, you feel more awake, you feel like you can do more things, and it can be extremely addicting. But when we start to make changes, we make changes to our lifestyle, it's not very comfortable. There's those thoughts in your mind and those voices that say it's all right just to go and do it one time, or maybe you just need to slow down. Maybe you just do it a little too much, and maybe if you just smoked a little less cigarettes or drank a little less, or you only ate a cupcake maybe once a week or something, then everything will be okay. And that is the voice of self-sabotage. I want to be very clear with you. This doesn't mean that it has to be forever, okay? But it does have to be long enough that you are able to break this habit before you go back to allowing yourself whatever it was in moderation. And there's a very, very big reason for that. And it's because if you don't do it that way, it's going to just reinforce the habit that you're trying to break. Now, there's people that say it takes about 21 days to break a habit. There's people that say it takes, a few months. So honestly, I would say that at least 21 days to break a habit. And as you do this, like I said, it's not going to be comfortable, and you're going to have to not give in to the cravings, the emotional cravings, and you've got to learn how to be present with your feelings, which we will get into here in a little while. All right, so this basically means that it's time for an emotional detox. We got to put the wrench in there somewhere. And if we throw a wrench right into the emotions, then that is going to help break the cycle. You can definitely start with breaking the habit. But what I find to be way more powerful is to just go right in and deal with the emotion that is fueling this in the first place. Okay, so an emotional detox, what does that mean? It means that you're going to allow all these emotions to start coming up. I know that somebody had asked about detaching from emotions. And yes, I do think there's a time and place for that, but I do not believe that detaching from emotions when you're trying to break a habit is going to be 100% helpful. And the reason for that is because a lot of the time when people practice detachment, they're actually practicing repression. So they will push their emotions away instead of actually detach from them. What I have found that is much better is to transmute those emotions, because not only do you get to turn it into something completely new, but you also remove those patterns from your body as you start transmuting this stuff. And that is really, really powerful. So how do we do this? Well, I believe the best way to do this is to pay attention to our cravings or our emotional triggers. So, the best way to start an emotional detox, in my opinion, is to make sure that you are not producing way too much dopamine. Okay. Dopamine is all about instant gratification, it is about getting what you want. Now, it lights up that part of the brain that lights up when we become addicted to things. Okay. So, dopamine is that drive. It's like, okay, for example, A mouse, if you take a mouse and you put it in a cage and you put a dispenser in there and you put food in it, and it learns how to press the lever to get its food, it immediately gets a dopamine hit once it gets the food. So it'll press the lever, it'll get the food. It'll press the lever and it'll get the food. And it doesn't think about its consequences, right? Because dopamine is not about long term. Dopamine is about short term. It's about short term gratification. And when we are emotionally detoxing, we have got to remove our short term gratifications because that keeps us addicted. Now, it keeps us addicted to our habits and it keeps us addicted to our emotions. What we want to replace, instead of having all that dopamine flooding the system, we want to replace it with higher levels of serotonin. Higher levels of serotonin is what is going to bring you more satisfaction and fulfillment. So you will feel full in your life instead of like something is always missing. Dopamine keeps you on that habit of trying to get the next thing. It's never ending. And so it just keeps going and going and going. But serotonin, on the other hand, that is way more sustainable, especially if you are trying to break a habit. I'm sure the reason you want to break this habit in the first place is because you want to lead a life that is fulfilling and a life that you enjoy. And so if you want that, we have to create long-term results. So let me give you an example between the differences of dopamine and serotonin right here. All right, so clearly decisions will be made a lot differently, right? If you want to trigger dopamine, you will go for the short term, instant gratification things such as the food or those cigarettes or whatever it is for you. And then if you're leaning more towards creating more serotonin, you might instead go exercise when you feel like you want to give in to one of your cravings. Or you might decide to pause, or you might decide to eat something that's healthy for you instead, or get something to drink, or whatever it is in that moment that you need. See, creating high serotonin has to do with your ability to make decisions that feel maybe not so comfortable in the present moment, but you know that it's going to give you the result that you want long term. So whatever that looks like for you, maybe you take your little journal and you write down a list of the things that you indulge in that create high dopamine, which can be even like social media, cell phones, video games, Netflix, anything that's basically thrill seeking, food, all these different things create high levels of dopamine, right? So get a list about the things in your personal life that you feel are creating too much dopamine. And then on the flip side, write down serotonin and write down the things in your life that helps create serotonin. And from there, you can decide on how you want to alter that list. And that'll be extremely helpful for you. And then from there, you just keep repeating the process, right? So you will identify the emotions that's triggering the habits. You will see how the habits are solidifying the emotions. And then you will take a step back. You will decide that it's time to do an emotional detox, and you will focus more on building up serotonin and less dopamine, and you will change the actions that you perform in your day-to-day lives. All right, well, with that being said, there is sometimes people have trauma that's stored in the body that they have not yet dealt with. And that can also be an underlying cause for these habits and these emotional cycles. So it's really important that you work with any discomfort that you feel inside of your nervous system or inside of your body. So that requires you to be more conscious about how you feel, conscious about your needs, and it almost requires you to learn how to reparent yourself. Now, I'm not going to get all into that, but it's definitely something that I highly recommend that you look into if you have dealt with any kind of adversity, especially in your younger years, because that can come and sabotage you. Okay, so you have to address the root cause. Trauma tends to pull us out of the present moment. In order for us to make clear decisions that are going to increase our ability to feel fulfilled in life, it requires us to be present. And if trauma is constantly pulling you out of the present moment where you can't just relax and you're always thinking or you're dissociating, then it's important that you work on this. So when you feel a strong emotion that gives you this urge to act on something that you know is not in your best interest, then it's important for you to take a pause. It's important for you to stop, and it's important for you to come back to yourself and become grounded again. Because in order for you to break habits, it requires a really, really strong focus on what it is that you want, at least in the beginning. Because once we allow our minds to run wild, or we're not as conscious with what we are doing, it sets us back. And that becomes really frustrating. And that's when people give up. So if you want to truly be successful, I highly recommend that you pay attention to your emotions, you work with your emotions, you befriend your emotions. It doesn't mean that you have to act on those emotions, but what it does mean is that you pay attention to them, you allow them to be there, and you do your best to not judge them. Because really, emotions are just here as messengers. They're not negative all the time. I mean, yes, they might appear negative, but they always have a message. They always have a higher purpose to them. And when we learn how to work with that higher purpose, that's when we can truly be successful. If you don't feel like you can do this by yourself, definitely reach out to somebody and get some help, whether that's a counselor, a coach, a friend, somebody that you trust. Work with somebody on this. Talk about what is causing you to act on your emotions and to create these habits, and have somebody kind of reflect back to you what they see, because a lot of the time we can't see ourselves 100%. So we need other people to point out our blind spots, and that's perfectly normal. And it will help you reach your goals so much faster than if you just go at it alone. The second thing is to begin a morning and night mindfulness practice. It's going to require a lot of mindfulness in the beginning so that you can notice the patterns and the emotions that you have in the first place. So, what I like to do is I like to journal in the mornings, I journal at night, and then I relax my body, consciously relaxing my body. And once I do that, I know that a bunch of things are going to come up, different emotions, different sensations, all those different things. And when that happens, I just allow them. And the more I allow them, the less power that they have over me. See, what we deny or what we resist persists. If we resist those emotions, if we resist how we feel, they're going to be persistent. We can do our best to push that away. We can try to ignore it, but it will always be there. So becoming mindful and journaling and being able to see what your thoughts are and how your decisions are shaping your reality is a very helpful thing. Again, contemplate and pause and just breathe and ground yourself. These are all going to be very helpful for you. Don't give in to cravings. That's the main thing here, because it's going to happen. It's inevitable. When you are breaking a habit, it will always, always pull you back. It will try, because you have neural connections in your brain that have been wired together. And so your body is used to the chemicals that are being created through those connections. It's going to take time. So just be patient with yourself. You are going to do amazing. I know that you will. And if you stick with it, you will definitely get through it. Okay. Another thing that's helpful is to detox your body. A lot of the time we have stuck emotions in the body that when we start detoxing, they start releasing. So if that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend that too. And the last thing is to just watch how you narrate your world. Okay. So as we live, as we observe the world around us, we talk to ourselves often and we narrate what we see. So the more that you pay attention to how you're narrating what you see and what you're experiencing, the more power you're going to have over how you feel. And when you feel light and you feel good and you don't feel like a victim to your emotions, that's when you can change your habits for the better. And that's when you can become more conscious so that you can be in control of your destiny and so that you can be a sovereign creator. You are a sovereign creator. It's like it's been obscured, That happens. That happens. And it's okay. You can bring yourself back. You can do this, and I have faith in you. And lastly, just relax. Relax. A lot of our issues that we have is fueled because we don't know how to relax. We live in a society that does not value relaxation. We see ourselves as lazy, and it's very detrimental to our health and our emotional health. So just learn how to relax, give yourself what you need, and be patient with yourself. Okay. Changing habits and breaking emotional habits as well is a very, very delicate thing to do. And it takes time. It takes time. It takes persistence. It takes a lot of courage. I know that you can do this. If you need any help with your emotions and breaking habits, then definitely get a hold of me. I offer one on one mentorships. I also offer consultations as well as gene key readings. And I find that gene keys are extremely helpful in doing this because it helps you to see your shadow patterns. It helps you to learn the art of contemplation. And it's been a very beneficial tool for me. And I know that it can be for you as well. So, with that being said, I hope that you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please leave a comment below. If there's anything else that you feel that I did not cover and you would like me to, please let me know that as well. I hope that you have a great day and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.